Hello, everyone. It's Paul here,
And Dave.
and we're going to go through the Super Mario platformers slash RPGs slash Luigi games and rank them all. So we have S rank at the top, followed by A, B, C, D, and F down at the bottom. And let's just get started here. So we are starting off with. Now you have to excuse me because I'm trying to read the box art on these, and it is not always super legible. So this looks like Super Mario Maker 1 to me. So what are we
Okay.
thinking?
It was definitely a bit of a phenomenon when it first came out. There isn't that much buzz around it nowadays. I wouldn't be surprised if you looked into it with whatever system you could manage. There'd most likely be somewhat of a crew, but again, there's two. There's a sequel to it. So the case that the first one is around, that yeah, there's probably not that much. At the very most, though, I'd say that it would be somewhere around in either maybe B tier. I think B tier would be the safest sort of bet in my case.
Yeah, I'm happy with B. I don't feel like it's a top end Mario game, but it was a cool concept, but I feel like it wasn't fully realized until the sequel.
Yeah, with that, that and also the case of the other option that was there was the actual modding and making of actual Mario levels through PC methods another way, which was a bit more not legal in those sort of cases, but it was still higher than what you could do with that. But this was Nintendo being like, oh, you want to mess around with making Mario levels? Here's something you can use for it. And everyone's like, oh, neat.
Yeah, it was basically Nintendo giving you the toolbox to make a Mario game, which is a
Indeed.
cool idea.
Indeed.
Okay, so next up is Mario and Luigi something jam, double jam,
I think it might be Paper Jam.
paper jam. That would be it. Yes, because there's Paper Mario in the corner. So what are we thinking
Uh,
for that?
oh boy. Well, it's a case of I own this particular game. I haven't gotten a chance to play it, but like I mentioned from last week with our discussion with tier lists, this was starting to get a bit closer to the time that Nintendo was trying to make a decision on what to do with its different RPG licenses that they had with Mario.
Hmm.
And Mario and Luigi is different from the Paper Mario series,
Yes.
but it was a marvelous case of what happens when we smush them together. And from what I've seen from the bit of gameplay and little bits I remember seeing, it has its moments, but it's still cases of there's not really that much substance to this.
Okay. So what are you thinking? C or D then? It sounds like.
Just with how I'm sort of thinking with it, I think it would sit somewhere around C, just with its particular concepts and the basis of going off of the Mario and Luigi gameplay style. It's still decent enough gameplay and whatnot. It's just adding the couple additional bells and whistles that they decided to go with, which, aside from an additional battle mode and little additional things that you could do within the story, it wasn't that much. Like, I think the biggest thing was the absolute absurdity of essentially Mario discussing with himself, going through an adventure with himself and Luigi.
Okay, that seems weird. Okay, so next up is Luigi's Mansion Dark Moon.
This one was always an interesting sort of one because it really expanded from the concept of Luigi's Mansion of, hey, explore this creepy mansion to see all the things inside. And now it's the case of, hey, you got these five creepy mansions to go explore. Going a bit more Mario style with it of exploring a multitude of different levels and seeing a whole bunch of different things that were explored there. It still kept the base story concept that your big villain was still King Boo
Yeah.
and exploring through all those things, but just with its interesting concepts, mechanics, and other things that they went with, it was definitely interesting. I think at the very most, people were concerned that it had a mission structure. So every time you went into the level, you would do a mission, and then you had to go back out before you could go in again.
Right. Okay. That seems a bit kind of weird.
Well, I think it was a case of they kept it more as a story functionality to it. The story went from going to mansion, try and figure out the issue of the story and going things from there.
Right. Okay.
It probably would have worked a bit better if it kept it more open ended and then it just kept you within the mansion until most everything was solved.
Right. So what are we thinking for a rank for this? Because it doesn't sound like you're super high on it.
It's one of the particular ones that it's good, but it's good for its own particular reasons. And there's no other real way to get this until, or aside from the 3DS.
Yeah.
And no, on whole, I'm fine with sticking it around in B to C tier.
Let's throw it in B because I have a soft spot for Luigi's Mansion.
Okay.
Okay, moving right along, we have Mario and Luigi Bowser's Inside Story.
This was my introduction to the Mario and Luigi series.
Right, yeah.
And it was basically the culmination of all the particular stuff that they had within those games. And just for fun, throwing Bowser into it, which just amplified everything within it. Just giving him more story as a character and all the funny things that happen with it. Though a couple things within the story probably also added to that and probably also added a couple additional things, but let's not go into that. On whole, it still sticks to a typical sort of Mario story with its bad that it decides to go with it. But the villain within the story, all the mechanics, and how everything plays out makes it one of my favorite Mario and Luigi games out of all of them.
Okay.
In my case, this would be probably up into an A, like with all the particular ones, but I wouldn't be surprised if it would slip down into B.
Well, let's throw it in A for now, and we can always, we can always reevaluate at the end.
Hmm.
So next up is New Super Mario Bros. Wii. Or sorry, New Super Mario Bros. U.
Okay. Um, I can't specifically remember with this one, but I believe this is the one that added Nabbit as one of the characters, or was this just a upgrade of what they did with the Wii?
It looks like there's more characters on the box.
Okay. It was interesting with this one, and they did the typical format of exploring through the couple typical worlds, typical Mario game, fighting all of the Koopalings, Bowser's kids, and all of that sort of stuff. And I think the only other interesting thing was there was a power up or two that was interesting. I think like the flying squirrel that had interesting gliding concepts from previous things such as the cape or other sorts of things like that. And they brought back the penguin suit that was supposedly interesting.
Okay.
But
It feels like
eh,
this was an era where Mario wasn't as big of a deal anymore. Like there was
it was
kind of
kind
like
of with
that
every
drop
system
off.
that released, they always had to release one of the 2D scroller Mario games.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm fine with sticking this in C. It was still good, but it was kind of one of the ones that it it could not exist and things would probably be fine.
Okay, we'll put it in C then. So next up is New Super Mario Bros. Wii.
It was kind of the first one that stuck with the traditional style of 2D Mario on a console.
Mm-hmm.
And as it was good, and it also brought in the multiplayer aspect of
Yes.
playing side scroller with multiple players, which was absolute and complete chaos. Nintendo, what the heck are you doing?
So where are we thinking for
But
this one?
but on whole, it's still good for what it is. It's just the case of it didn't do anything super revolutionary to push it any further than it was. I'd
Fair.
be fine with sticking it around either. Eh, for me, it's sitting with B, but I wouldn't be surprised with pushing it up into A. But again, it wasn't anything that really pushed it too far. It's like multiplayer, yes, but it was still side scroller Mario.
Yeah, so I'll put it in B, and again, we can always reevaluate at the
Hmm.
end. So next up is New Super Mario Bros., and this is the DS version.
Okay. Again,
So
it was
this is an era of Mario I don't think I've played any of these games.
okay. Just with this one was more side scrolling, or was this more of a 3D?
This was the first one that went back to the side scrolling, if memory serves.
Okay with that.
Yeah,
Um, Again, it was definitely interesting enough with getting the Mario game in that kind of style, especially with them trying to explore 3D on the DS and stuff at the time,
yep.
but yeah, only being able to kind of go so far with it. It explored a couple of interesting aspects, but I think aside from a power up or two, there wasn't really that much that they really did with this one. It was still good for what it was, but it was kind of like the typical Mario adventure.
Okay,
Yeah, I'm fine with it just sitting in C.
C it is then. So this might be a controversial one, but Super Mario Bros. 2, which kind of sort of isn't a Mario game, but it's on our list here. So
Yes. Since this was the one that
it was a
there
reskin
was,
of a Japanese game. I don't remember the name off
there
the top of my head.
was a second Mario game, but it was supposedly so hard that people were like, they probably would not like this if we brought it over to the
Yeah,
States.
yeah,
Hey, how about this one particular game that has all the particular functionalities and whatnot of a Mario game, but has different look to it? We could paint over it. It's like, okay, let's do that.
yeah, and it had the weird like you could pick vegetables and throw them. Like it was kind of a weird
Yeah,
departure, but
it was experimental time with Nintendo at the time with trying to get things over from there. There's most likely more to the story than what we're bringing up with it, but on whole, I'd still say that this is it's good that this game at very least exists. It probably wouldn't exist if it was released at any other particular time.
oh yeah,
Um,
no, absolutely not.
um, but I think on whole it was good at least for what it did with a couple of its particular concepts. It's one of the ones that I just do not have as much experience. I played levels of what it before, um, but again, I don't have a lot of experience with it. But I know that it's at least a decent enough game, but nothing groundbreaking. Again, with what it is.
Yeah, I was gonna say the same thing. Like when I had my NES when I was a kid, I had Super Mario Bros. Like the original and 3, and I didn't have 2. And I played
Yeah,
2 like I've rented it
was
once and never touched it again.
yeah, just with those sorts of cases. I think on whole, just with all the stuff that they did with it, it's good, but it's nothing incredibly groundbreaking. I'd say that this would probably be our first D, just with
D.
what it is.
Yeah, because it's also not really a Mario game. Like
Mhm.
they put Mario on the box, but it's not really a Mario game. Okay,
Hmm.
I feel like this next one should be an easy one for us. Super Mario Odyssey.
Yeah, that's S.
Yeah, okay, we are on the same page.
Again, it's one of the particular ones that, unless a Mario game really hooks me, there's not a lot that I'll really stick with it a lot. And sadly, Odyssey falls within this case, but just how much of a push and concept that they put into this one, it was huge.
Yeah, it's a good game. It's like it's very well made. It's beautiful on the Switch, and I do like the being able to throw a hat and control other like enemies and stuff. Like that's a fun mechanic.
It's why my nephews love it. They always throw the hat onto the T Rex and destroy everything.
Well, of course, that's what I do. Okay, so next up is Super Mario RPG: Legend of the Seven Stars.
Ah, yes. The particular one that would be interesting if they updated it in some sort of way, but it's never going to happen just with all the particular stuff of how many people really know about it and just the issue with companies and
Yeah,
who
because it
really.
was made by Capcom, but obviously it's a Nintendo license, so things get a little difficult there.
It's definitely interesting with all its particular concepts. It starts off the idea of Mario RPG mechanics with it's still sticking to a turn-based style, but having you interact with the battles with able to use certain button combinations to increase attacks, defend yourself from other attacks, and influence the battle in certain ways.
Yeah, it's a I would argue it's kind of a traditional RPG, but with Mario kind of gives it, I don't know, something a little extra to me because I'm not
And
really an
as well
RPG guy.
and as well as all the story that goes in with it, it expands more outside of the Mushroom Kingdom to
Hmm.
look into other interesting ideas and characters that could really be thrown into it. It's the game that originated Juno, which, if you don't know about it, is a super popular character that everybody and their grandma wanted to return in certain ways.
Right. Okay. Yeah. I'm not. I'm not. I'll be completely honest. I haven't played this game in a long time.
Hmm, yeah, in those sorts of cases. And at the very most, it still holds a lot of old ideas. This is the Mario game that has a Power Ranger ripoff in it.
Okay. I don't remember that at all.
No,
Uh,
it has an entire team of Axum Rangers that spoofs off of Power Rangers.
huh. I don't remember this at all, but that's interesting.
No, it has a lot of older concepts and other particular sorts of things, but it's ridiculous and amazing enough that if you see Mario mess with that sort of stuff, you're like, oh, no, this works. This is interesting.
Yeah. So where are we thinking for this one? Because again, I'm not super familiar with it, so I'm gonna have to rely on you a bit here.
Uh, with this particular one, it's probably a bit blasphemous, but I think it would probably sit fine within B. Just with all the stuff that it has, it's amazing for what it was at the time. And looking at it today, you'd still probably find some interesting things, but it's just so hidden behind certain stuff. And if you're not really pushed into it or find it interesting, you're not really going to get yourself into it.
Yeah, I feel like it's one of those games that at the time was amazing, but it hasn't aged terribly well.
But I think that's also the case of, even at the time, it was so niche that there wasn't really that much circulation around it.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know. Okay.
Uh, Tough with those sorts of bits there.
Yeah. So next up, we have Super Mario 3D Land. This was on the
Okay, this is
3DS.
what I was thinking with more of the 3D style Mario
Yes.
platforms on the handheld systems.
Yeah. Yeah, because this was 3DS.
Yeah, with this one, it was fairly simple with most of the stuff that it did within it. It brought up a couple of other interesting concepts and especially made a lot of more interesting boss encounters with a couple of the characters, but it still kept it fairly simple to a platformer. I think with this one it would probably just sit at a C.
A C? Okay. I'm fine with that because I think I've played it a little bit, but again, I was like, well, this is just a Mario game. I've played Mario games before.
Hmm.
Alrighty. So next up, we have Super Paper Mario.
Ah, yes, with this one. It's kind of the turnoff from what Paper Mario originally was from the GameCube era, but still wanted to keep the concept. On whole, with this particular one, it's definitely interesting. It still keeps the paper concept, but evolves it a bit
Hmm.
with giving additional mechanics and other things that you can do with it. Though it switches from you being a piece of paper to you literally going into separate dimensions.
Okay. I didn't see that coming, but okay.
Well, it's the concept of everything is 2D looking, but then you flip it around into a 3D plane by flipping to the side.
Oh, okay. That's kind of weird, but okay.
Yeah, they had to go in with different concepts and other sorts of things there. And it seems to be with the Paper Mario series, it's just go into a different dimension now. But I think it was also interesting that this was one of the darkest games that ever was released around at the time with Mario in it.
Really
Well, it brought up more of the concept of, oh, hey, we brought about the apocalypse and everything is about to be destroyed in several different dimensions.
fun. It's fun for the whole family.
Exactly. Oh, and then of course it's the case of you go to the underwear, which is their version of hell.
Oh, okay, that's certainly a concept for a game for kids.
It was rated E, is what they had with it.
Yeah, it seems kind of weird to me, but that's interesting.
Hmm.
Um, yeah. So what are you thinking for a rating?
Rating wise, I think as it is, just with its all concepts and other bits with it, it started to make the swerve off from particular sorts of games. So I'd have to stick it in C. Though I do have to admit, it has Francis, which is the case of, oh boy, if you're going to insult some people, this is the way to do it.
Okay. Again, I don't know what that means, but okay. Next up, Mario and Luigi Superstar Saga. Now, I don't know if you played this one, did you?
I worked a little bit within the story. I got a bit stuck with it, but this was essentially the start of the Mario and Luigi RPG series, which
Yes.
worked with its basic concept and just with all the particular stuff that they had within it, it works for its entire concept. And it was definitely interesting to see a different story out of the Mushroom Kingdom and going into that sort of story. And all the additional characters and functions that were in the story was fun and interesting to see. And without it, they wouldn't have gotten Bowser's Inside Story or any of the other Mario and Luigi games.
Yeah, I played this game back when it came out initially, and I freaking loved it. I loved that you left the Mushroom Kingdom, and I loved the humor in the game, and that it was just something quite different for a Mario game.
Mm.
What are you thinking for a rating for this one? Because
I
my
think on whole, I think on whole, I'm fine for sticking this up around an A. It's one of the really good ones, and they had re-releases of it as well.
Yeah, I was gonna say I was gonna be A or B, but I'm happy to put it in A.
Mm.
Next up, we have Paper Mario: The Thousand Year Door.
Ooh, this one's a tricky. Since on the one hand, there's a decent crowd of people that absolutely adore this game, and I wouldn't quite say adore, but I very much appreciate this game for what it did, all of its functionality, and being the update from Paper Mario that I stepped into. Now,
Okay,
it's mostly a question of whether or not to stick it right in S or stick it around in A.
okay. This is one that I'm gonna be completely honest. I never really played. I played some of the first Paper Mario, but again, not a lot. I kind of the minute they went RPG, a lot of the time I just wasn't interested. So
Yeah, that was kind of the trick. Unless you kind of got your foot in the door and really liked the RPG style, there really wasn't that much to it. Basic story to it is Peach decides to go on a vacation and then gets kidnapped by space pirates, and Mario has to go and save him.
okay, well, I mean, I will admit that is a good concept.
And he has to go to a brand new place where the thing that sits in the middle of the town is a gallows.
Okay.
So,
Um,
it's hell some fun. And while you're having a discussion with a person, some mob people beat up some people behind you. So it's a case of you might have to deal with the mob later on.
that's fantastic.
And it kind of dives into other interesting story ideas. And again, it's another one of the Mario games of if you really sort of listen to the story, it's like, ooh, this is kind of dark.
Right. Yeah. What are you thinking for a rating? Because again, like I haven't really played the game, so I can't really.
Honestly, just with how this one sits with its niche-ish, I can't place it anything lower than an A because just with going through and playing it and enjoying the concept that has with it, it's amazing for what they did at the time. But it's not one of the big ones that if you mention a Mario game to a person, it probably wouldn't be the immediate thing they say to you.
Yeah, I'm
If it is,
comfortable.
then I'll shake their hand, but nevertheless.
Yeah, I'm totally comfortable putting that in A because I know that was like a big game for a lot of people, and for a lot of people, I think that's the high point of that series. So
Hmm.
next up, we have Super Mario 3D World, and this was the one that I want to say was on the Wii U. Because
Oh,
Nintendo went through this phase where they wanted to name everything like so similarly that it was impossible to tell them apart. Yeah,
yeah.
this is the Wii U one. I'm pretty sure.
Okay. Because again, aside from doing a couple interesting concepts with one or two levels, it was just a typical Mario 3D scroller, I believe, with this one. Like, aside from adding a couple additional modes, like I think this is the one that added the Luigi mode before they made it its own game.
I might have. It's from my understanding is it's. You remember we talked about 3D Land not long ago. This is basically like the Wii U version of that. So it's
Oh,
3D, but kind of like that side scrolly 3D
okay.
is my understanding. But again, the
Um,
Wii U era of Nintendo, I did not pay attention to.
it's tricky with this particular one, but I believe. Hmm, I might just need a second. I think I might need to quickly pull up a list of
Okay,
all
go
the
ahead.
because I'm getting mildly confused with those particular Mario games. If you by chance have a link or a particular list that you're sort of looking at,
I can send you a link. Give me a second here. Oh wait, I gotta. Nope, wrong one. Where is the thing I was looking at?
excuse me.
Okay, so here is. I'll send you a few because they're broken down by series. So here's the one for Paper Mario if you need it. Here's the one for Mario and Luigi. And finally, here's the one for everything. And that's just the entire franchise. That includes games we're not talking about, though.
Okay, but still one that you're kind of going off from and then
Yeah,
going from the list there.
yeah.
Just sort of glancing with the couple particular ones that you named, I think it's the case that I got it a little mixed up. So the
Okay.
particular one that you were mentioning was Super Mario 3D World.
Yes.
Okay. So, to make it simpler for the people out there, this is the one that stuck Mario in a cat suit.
Okay. See, this is an era of Nintendo that I just completely blanked on because I was like, I don't care about the Wii U because the Wii U was terrible, and I know I'm gonna get like shot at in the comments for saying that, but it's the truth.
Yeah, it's one of the particular things with the system. It had some legs to stand on, but they were not enough to go for the leg sweep of the video game market at the time.
Yeah, it was not a great system in my opinion.
But at the very least, this game was re-released on the Switch with an additional game mode to it, which we're not talking about. We're talking about its first release. And for its first release, this was interesting enough for a 3D Mario with its base concept. It kept the base idea of going to a couple different levels in the world, fighting against Bowser, um, and playing through the couple levels, but all in 3D, all with a bunch of interesting power ups, and just a bunch of marvelous, ridiculous concepts that they decide to go with within this game.
Yeah. So what are we thinking for a rating for this one?
For this particular one, I'm thinking A because it's another one of the multiplayer ones to add into the chaos for it. All the platforming and interesting functionality that they did with this was interesting. And they also turned Bowser into a cat, which was absolutely hilarious and terrifying.
Alrighty. So next up, we have New Super Mario Bros. 2. This was another one. I think it was on the DS, if memory serves.
Uh, DS1.
It might be 3DS.
Because I have one in mind, but I'm wondering if it's the one or if it was a different one. And that was New Super Mario Bros. 2?
Yes.
Okay, for this particular one. Or, translating, do you like gold?
Oh, this is the coins one, isn't it?
It is. This is the
Okay.
one where, why the heck do you even have a coin counter? Because that thing's going to be hitting 999 for all of eternity.
Yeah, I remember something about the advertising for this one being like, oh, you can get all the coins and whatever, but I was always like, I never really cared that deeply about coins when I played the game.
It's one of the ones that I never really touched. And I think it still sticks to the base Mario game idea of going through the typical levels in platforming. Just it gives you additional power ups that give you nothing but coins, and you get a stupid amount of coins no matter what.
Yeah, so what are we thinking for a rating on this one?
Honestly, it still seems like a decent enough Mario game, but I'm fine with sticking this in D. Like, this doesn't seem like that much.
Yeah, to me it doesn't feel like it's, a massive deal. Alrighty, so next up we have a little game called Mario and Luigi Dream Team.
Ah, yes. It's one of the ones that I do have, but I haven't gotten the chance to play through it yet. Though I do know a little bit of its game mechanics. It still sits with the same functionality of a Mario and Luigi RPG game, but throws a couple of interesting concepts into it. It's another one of the ones of you dive out of the Mario Kingdom and explore different lands and other things from that. But I think another interesting thing was when this game was released and the functionality of the game, it's one that throws Luigi more within the spotlight.
Right, okay.
Because it's the case of literally from the title Dream Team, Luigi mostly sleeps while Mario jumps around inside of his dreams.
That's actually a pretty good concept.
And you still interact with Luigi within his own dreams, but since it's his own dreams, he has functionality within all of the particular dreams to do different sort of stuff.
That's fantastic.
It's interesting and absolutely insane in certain cases. But again, it wasn't one of the super big things that I remember seeing about this game, and it's another one of the ones that you'll hardly hear it talked about.
Yeah, I feel like the Mario and Luigi series kind of nobody remembers it.
So I'd say on whole that it would probably C, just with
See?
my knowledge of it. It's interesting concept enough, but again, it's a case of I really need to work on actually playing through the game.
Yeah, no, fair enough. So next up, we'll do Super Mario Galaxy.
Ah, yes, the super big one jumping into 3D space and outer space.
Yes, so not the first 3D Mario, but definitely the first one. Well, I mean, not the only one, but one of the only ones to go to space. And it was the big one that hit the Wii, and you know,
It was
it was a big game.
essentially Wii's big Mario game at the time.
Yes,
And it fits with all the particular stuff it has within it. But honestly, just with all of its particular concepts and whatnot, it was there and it still has a touch on a lot of things today. But it's one of the things that if you ask someone about it, it's like, oh, I haven't played it yet, or can't really remember too much about it.
mm-hmm.
I'm still thinking that this would still sit like just skirting on S, but probably still sitting in A.
We'll throw an A for now. So, following that up, coincidentally enough, is Super Mario Galaxy 2.
Ah, yes. The one where if you heard about it, it's like, play a sequel to Galaxy, that'd be awesome. But then you actually sort of play it and you're like, they went with this concept where it switches more into levels instead of having a hub to go off to.
Right.
But still, as it was still Mario, and it brought a lot of interesting power up concepts and Yoshi into the mix.
Yes, and I feel like Yoshi's always been like, you know, one of those kind of characters.
Yeah, it's pretty much the best way to sort of say it. It's sad, but it's as it sits with Yoshi.
Yeah, Yoshi's always been like a good supporting character, but never really had like that big, like, game, like big solo game. They've
Mm.
tried a few times, but it's never really seemed to hit the way that you would
It's
assume it
either
would.
that or it mostly just goes off of its aesthetic or concept that it has within the game, other than Yoshi is in this game.
Yeah, it's always like, well, it's a Mario game, kinda.
Mm.
And like, who doesn't like Yoshi? Yoshi's a cool guy, and he doesn't afraid of anything.
Indeed.
So, what are we thinking for a ranking for
Yeah,
this one?
I'm still fine with sticking this up in A. It's still Mario Galaxy. It's just with some additional things where any person now today, it's like they could have just made this DLC to Mario Galaxy if they had the capability to.
I mean, honestly, they would have had the capability, but it's Nintendo, so you know how that goes. So we were thinking
Yeah.
C for that one,
No, I'm still thinking,
or did you say B?
yeah, B.
B. Okay.
Mhm.
Okay. So next up, we have a little game. Yoshi's Island. Let me just check here. That is Yoshi's Island. It looks like Yoshi's Island. Yeah. Oh no, it's the 3DS one here. Let me. I can't read the box art. I have to grab the list here. It is Yoshi's Island. Oh, I believe it's Yoshi's New Island.
Okay, I think on the
3DS.
yes, they're 3DS.
3D.
3DS.
Yeah.
Yes. I think it was interesting with the bit of concept it had with it, but it was essentially just Yoshi's Island on the DS with a couple bits of functionality. Don't think that there was too much of a change.
Yeah, I've never really played the Yoshi games because again, like it's always like there's never anything about them that's super interesting.
Like
Other
I
than
think with the very first one that they had with Yoshi's Island, there was the bit of concept at the time. But I think after that it was just kind of just going off of that step and not that much else.
yeah. So what are we thinking for this one?
Like I'm fine with C.
C.
If we need to make space for a D, but C seems fine for it.
I'm fine with C. So next up we have Paper Mario Color Splash, which I know from hearing from Nintendo fans, a lot of people hate this game.
Yeah, yeah.
You're more. How much of a Paper Mario fan are you? Like you've played most of them, haven't you?
I pretty much have all of them, honestly, but haven't gotten through all of them aside from the first two. And yeah, even with that, it started to go well. The start of it was on Sticker Star, but we'll get to that. With Color Splash, it was the concept of the aesthetic and look of the game overtook just about everything.
Right. Yeah. That's kind of what I've been hearing from a lot of people. It was style over substance.
Mm. The one particular thing that has upgraded a little bit is the actual storytelling and concepts within the story, where the one idea of having a bunch of new style characters that were different from characters in the Mushroom Kingdom has been gone because of Nintendo's concern for keeping it within the Nintendo franchise. But it's the case that any character that you talk to has an interesting thing to say.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
There's an interesting story that there's a character you can find within the game that you talk to, not fight, talk to while you're riding on a train. And depending on your actions through the game, you could accidentally kill him later on.
Oh, that's interesting.
But they only do that one or two times. And again, on whole, with its concepts and other things within the game, it messes interesting, but still cases of there could be better ways to have this influenced, and they could probably take the Mario sticker off of this and make this an entirely different franchise, and it could probably work.
Hmm.
Mario is pretty much the only thing that's keeping staying power to it.
Okay. Yeah, yeah.
With Color Splash specifically, I probably sit it somewhere in the D tier though, because
D.
it's still iffy with its gameplay,
Right.
especially since there's been certain parts of the game where you have to either have certain things or do certain things to actually progress through the story, which can be a hassle.
Right. Okay. So it's like those old like point and click games where if you don't pick up the rope and level in like screen 1, you're screwed when you get to the end of the game kind of thing.
Not quite as that bad, but still cases of if you didn't understand, oh, I could actually walk up to and interact with this giant thing despite the fact it looks like a set piece.
Right. Okay. So things aren't necessarily delineated clearly what's interactable and what isn't.
In certain cases, yeah.
Okay. That makes sense. So we'll throw it in D. Next up is a game I doubt you've played, but we'll bring it up anyway. Super Mario Land on the original Game Boy.
No, I believe when I was younger, I had a friend or two that had that game.
Okay.
Though at that time, it was essentially just more Mario just on a Game Boy
Yeah.
setting.
Yeah, no,
It, de-
absolutely.
it definitely wasn't enough to kind of go to there, and needed the dedication to actually get through all the levels to get to the end.
Yeah. And I want to say, like, it was Mario on a handheld, which was cool, but at the same time, it was never as good as Mario on the NES.
Yeah. I think like the only one thing they added to it is supposedly in one of the last levels, it switches to an airplane level and kind of plays in Gradius style.
Yeah. I don't remember that, but I never played the game that much, so you might be 100% on that. I don't know.
Like I only vaguely remember is one little thing that the Game Boy Mario game has a plane section in it.
Huh. I don't remember this. Okay, either way, where would we put this for a ranking?
As it sits, I'd still say that it's fairly influential because my first thought
Yes.
was B, just with how it was, but I'd be fine with sticking it in C.
In C? Okay. Yeah, I'm fine putting it in C because it's a game that I'm like, oh, that's cool, but I never really played it.
Yeah.
So next up, we have Luigi's Mansion.
The first one.
Yes.
Just with its original concept alone, I've played through a bit of the game, but I've seen people play through the entire game, so I have an idea of how most everything plays.
Yes.
And surprisingly enough, it's short. It's one of the particular games that when it came out, it was surprising that it came out so short with all the stuff that it did with it.
Oh, really? Like, is it that short? I haven't
It's the
played this
case
game in so long that.
if you knew what to do and knew how to play through the game, you'd probably be able to manage through it in a couple of hours.
Really? I don't remember this at all. So according to howlongtobeat.com, they're saying it's 6.5 hours.
Yeah, if you knew what you were doing and where you needed to go.
Okay. I mean, to me, that doesn't seem super short, but I mean, I'm somebody who's like, yeah, like 8 hours is kind of ideal for me, but I know that's not the case for everyone.
Mm.
So where are we thinking for this? Because I enjoyed the game, but again, I didn't play it a ton.
Mm. No, it's one of those. It's one of those particular ones that if you're in the mood for it, this will hit that niche if you really want to play through the Luigi style experience. And just with all of the interactions and other particular things in the game that warm my gamer heart, um, Just with how I sit with it, I'd probably stick it somewhere in B.
You said in B?
Yeah, in B.
In B? Okay, I'm happy with putting it in B. So next up, let's go to Luigi or Mario and Luigi Partners in Time.
This one's the tricky one since this was the sequel that came after the first Mario and Luigi. And it's one of the ones that's interesting for its concept, having more time travel mechanics, alien invasions, and other interesting sort of things, but it's hardly talked about. With the revival of a couple particular Mario and Luigi games, this is the only one that never got it.
Never got what?
It never got a re-release. Mario
Oh,
and Luigi,
right. Yeah, yeah.
Superstar Saga and Bowser's Inside Story got re-releases on the 3DS. Partners in Time sadly did not.
Okay. Yeah, yeah. This this is the one. It's a direct sequel to Saga, but
Hmm.
this is the one where they go back and you play as like Baby Mario and Baby Luigi, right?
It's essentially you have both the brothers twice, Mario and Luigi,
Right.
and their baby selves.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, yeah. Okay. This is a game that interested me, but I never actually played.
Oh boy, the story with this one and all the other particular concepts. But it was essentially more of Mario and Luigi, but again, doubled since you had the baby Mario and Luigi to work with and other bits of story there. Haven't actually gotten far enough within the game, though it is still the case that an alien invasion happens and they're not super friendly when it comes to what they do.
I I've always loved like some of these Nintendo games where they have like the weirdest plots. Like it's a Mario game and then aliens show up.
Yeah, and yeah, with what they decide to do, it gets a little dark.
So where are we thinking for this one?
Um, Sadly enough, just with how it kind of is and my knowledge of it, it probably would be sitting in D, just
D?
with what I know. It's one of the ones that I still need to work on, but I still haven't gotten to it.
Fair enough. Okay, so next up is Paper Mario, the original on the N64.
My one particular N64 game I still love to go back to, since it has the traditional concept of an RPG that you can mess around with, go into a different sort of play style, but it's simple. It's one that you could probably give to a young 5 year old kid, and they probably get the concept of it
Right,
if they could sit down long enough to sit through the story bits and other bits like that.
right.
Since the story's nice enough, but there just isn't enough action to really go along with it until you get into that action, which is always the issue with some RPGs.
Yeah, there's a lot of it's front loaded with story.
Mhm.
So is this S or is this A? Because I feel like it's one of the two. I just don't know where you're gonna want to put it.
In my case, it's A. Thankfully enough, I'm not one of those diehard fans that is pounding at Nintendo's door to be like, "Give me a game."
I mean, I would love to see a re-release of it.
It
Um,
definitely would be nice. Like, I think at the very most, oh no, I think they already did it. If you had the N64 cloud version stuff on the Switch, you can play a version of it.
okay, yeah, but I hate that.
Yeah, it's one of the particular concepts that they just have to work with nowadays.
Yeah, unfortunately.
Hmm.
So you're thinking A for that one?
A for that one. It's definitely good for what it did.
Yeah, no, fair enough, fair enough. Alrighty, so next up we have a little game known as Super Mario 64. So I'm assuming we're just putting this in S right away.
Yeah, there's pretty much no discussion. Like any person that's asking about what Mario 64 is case of, oh sweetie, we need to get you an N64 right away.
Yeah, like how like I'm sorry, but if you're listening to this and you've never played this game, go play it because I mean, it's the Mario game.
Indeed. Though it's the Mario game that broke off of the base concept of what a Mario game was at the time and just said, yeah, let's just throw Mario into an open world or a more freestyle sort of game.
Yeah. The only thing I will say is if you haven't played the game already, is I hate to be this guy, but it doesn't it doesn't hold up as well as you think.
Yeah, it's one of those particular sorts of things of if you are playing it and enjoying it, you're probably wearing rose tinted glasses.
Yeah, because I went back to it when they
Know what the
re-released, because they did the 64 Galaxy and what was it,
Sunshine.
Sunshine on the Switch, and I'm like, oh, Super Mario 64, I loved this game as a kid, and then I booted it up and I was playing it, and I'm like, oh, the camera in this is bad.
Oh, I think I have that game, and I'm actually not sure if I jumped to it and I jumped into one of the other ones. But I'm guessing it's more of a straight port from one of the N64 games and not a updated version of it.
From memory, it's just a straight port, and that's kind of the issue, is they don't
Yeah.
like tweak the camera or anything.
Yeah.
Because there are times where I was falling off ledges and stuff because I'm like, but the way that the camera moved was unfair.
Mm,
Stuff like that. But it's an amazing game otherwise. And like, if I
indeed.
gave it's one of those things where like for the first 15 minutes it annoyed me, but if I played it for an hour or two, I'd be like, yeah, I'm back. I'm 12 again, and this is fine.
Mhm.
Yeah. So next up, Super Mario Bros. 3. So again, I'm assuming just straight to S.
Yeah, on whole with it. Since it's my very first Mario game experience, actually playing it on an old Nintendo Entertainment System.
Right on.
Um, but it's one of the games that just with the game style at that time, all the particular sorts of things that we did, I never, ever got to the end of it. I know what happens at the end since I've seen friends and whatnot get to the end of it, but I've never made it there myself.
Yeah, it's same thing. Like as a kid, I never got to the end, and I haven't gone back to it in a long time. But it's just it's the quintessential Mario game for at least like for people our age or slightly older.
Indeed.
Because this is
Like as it is, I wouldn't be averse to sticking it up to S, but in my own mind, it's sitting down in A. Like it's one of the ones that nowadays I'm not too sure how crazy people are about it.
yeah. I'm sorry, I have to put this game in S because it's not the first video game I ever played, but it's one of the first.
Nah, ditto in my case. I'll agree with you there.
Alrighty, so next up we have Super Mario All Stars, which was the Super Nintendo compilation of Mario 1, 2, and 3, and a game we haven't talked about yet, but Super Mario World.
The hang on, looking through the list. Uh, uh where is that? I know which one you're talking about, but hearing that and then hearing that it also had World in it, I was kind of like, wait, was that the case with this one?
Oh,
Or
they re-released it later as Super Mario All Stars Plus World. I'm getting confused.
oh, okay.
Right, the original release did not have World in it.
Okay, but it's the one that had one, two, and three.
Yes, yeah.
Um. Oh, and just to confirm, with two, this was Japan's Super Mario 2, just updated levels and additional harder levels to it. Or was this the original Mario 2 that was released in the States?
No, this was just the original Mario games that came out in the US ported onto the SNES.
Okay.
And I think they upped the graphics a little bit as well.
Like jumping from NES to SNES, so.
Yeah.
Yeah. Again, it's there. Like, have all the particular sorts of games to it. See?
Yeah, and I mean this has like some just amazing games in it. Oh, this might have had lost. Let me just quickly check here because I might be giving you bad information.
Yeah, because I vaguely remember that it also had
It
the.
had lost levels in it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, this was the first release of that to the States.
Yes. Yeah, you're right.
So again, it also brought that concept, but again, depending on if you were a hard enough Mario fan, it's just a whole bunch of harder levels. And the introduction to a mushroom that kills you if you touch it instead.
Yeah. So what are we thinking for this one?
I'm still thinking C. Like, it's nice enough
C.
that all that stuff finally came to the States, but it's just a compilation.
Yeah, no, I mean that's fair. So next up, uh, Super Mario Bros.
The very first one?
The very first one.
Because despite that, it was influential for what it did and all the stuff from now. But even to that extent, yeah, there's only so much you can kind of have with it. It's good that it created the franchise from there, but I've never made it to the end, and I have no interest to.
Fair.
Just kind of sits.
Yep. What are we thinking?
Safest, I think, would be C.
C? Oh,
Like,
I don't know, Dave. This game's so iconic. Um, really a C, eh?
like it's there, or maybe even in D. But again, it's just my bias of in the around the time that I was born and played these sort of games, I didn't really get to it until it was released on the Wii, and I could purchase it from there. And even then, it was
Oh.
just a case of just kind of having it and playing through the couple of levels before I died. And it's like, well, time to go do something else.
Yeah, okay, I'll throw it in C. I can't put it in D. I'll have a heart attack and die if I do that.
Duly
But
noted.
that game's super iconic, but I would totally agree that if you play it now, it does not hold up as well as people remember it. Super Mario
Mm.
Bros. 3, go back to that and play that if you want an NES Mario game.
Mm.
Because that game holds up super well.
Indeed.
Next up, we have Super Mario Sunshine.
Ah, yes. More really my experience with a Mario platformer. Since I was introduced to the Super Mario 64, but it wasn't exactly one of the ones that I enjoyed playing it around the time. It wasn't until the GameCube released and Sunshine came around that I was like, okay, this is more of a concept of what a platformer is, despite the fact that it completely throws the wrench of, hey, here's a jetpack that allows you to hover so you don't fall into a pit if you jump wrong.
Yeah, it had the little water pack, and it had kind of a fun story where you had to go around and clean up the town and whatnot after whatever the Dark Mario dude kind of screwed things around. It was a fun, it was a good game, good game.
And interesting, and there were still levels where it gave the basic concept of a 3D platformer without having to use your pack.
Yeah,
But I think on whole, just with this particular one, I wouldn't quite say it was a flash in the pan, but there hasn't really been much other sort of thing like it since. So
no,
I'm
it is.
fine with somewhere in around B or so. It
Yeah,
wasn't anything super big.
I'm happy to go with B because, like you said, that we never got a sequel to it.
Mm.
They never continued on with that, and I wish they did because I love the
It's an
idea. But
interesting sort of concept, but they haven't either found something to upgrade that concept from where it was or weren't willing to go another round with it.
yeah, yeah, no, well, I think we're on the same page here. So next up, we have Super Mario World.
The
That's the
Super
SNES one.
Nintendo system?
Yep, that's the Super Nintendo one.
Yes. Again, it's good. It's still one of the ones that I haven't played through or gotten to the end through, but still, just with all of its concepts and ideas, it's so much fun. Just with all the stuff that you can
Yes.
do, and
Yep.
just with how much people have gone through the game, figured out its sequence, and how fast they can get through it with speed runs,
Hmm.
it can get a little ridiculous and amazing.
Absolutely. What are we thinking for this one? Because to me, it's one of those iconic Mario games.
Mm-hmm.
What are we
I'm
thinking?
just questioning whether or not that would push it up into S tier or not. Because as it sits with me, it sits fine in A.
I got to go S on this one.
Okay, with that, I won't disagree with that.
Because to me, I put that in the same sentence as Super Mario 3 or 64.
Okay.
Next up is Super Mario World 2 Yoshi's Island.
Okay, going more with that concept there. It was definitely interesting, but it was more messing a little bit more with the Yoshi idea than it was more with a Mario game. Mm.
Yeah, it was definitely from memory. It was designed to be an easier game.
Hmm.
I'm
I think
I'm
I would probably sit somewhere around in C, just with what I remember of it.
yeah, I'm fine with that. Next up, we have Super Mario Land 2 on the Game Boy.
This is the one where they got weird. Like it started to get a little bit more to an NES style
Mm-hmm.
with its particular look, but they just went. They threw everything at the wall, and pretty much anything that stuck is what they went with.
Yeah, I don't remember this game at all. That's the thing. I don't remember that one coming out, but
Like at the very most, the only thing I can specifically remember about it is someone made a parody song about it on YouTube.
yeah, I don't remember that game at all. Um, I'm happy to throw it in B or C because to me, it's not one of those top end games.
Yeah, see, again, I'd be able to throw it in there. Like, I think the only one other thing is Wario, I believe, was introduced in this one.
Yeah, that might be. Oh well, I still don't think it's a super iconic game. And the final game we have is Paper Mario Sticker Star.
Oh, God. The start and absolute worst concept for this. Ugh.
What are we thinking?
Just with its base idea, it was interesting with what they decided to do, but with how they decided to go about it and just how bad it could supposedly get, this is probably one of the ones that I'm fine with sticking in D all the way down to F.
Okay, I'm happy to put it in F because again, Paper Mario is not a franchise that I'm super familiar with, and I know this and Color Splash always get a lot of hate from fans of those games. So I'm happy
It's
with
just,
F.
it's just the marvelous case of why would you create an attack system that works on stuff that you have to acquire, where you can get into a situation where you can't essentially attack anymore.
Yeah, I remember hearing about this now. It does. Yeah, okay. Now that you mention it, yeah, that was one of those things where I was always like, "That seems really dumb." Okay, so
Concept is interesting, but just ugh, ugh. And it's still
so
one of the ones that I'm still trying
okay, we'll quickly
to
run
work on playing
through.
through.
We'll quickly run through the tiers and see if you want to move anything. But I'm feeling like this is all pretty strong. So in S rank, we have Super Mario Odyssey, Super Mario 64, Super Mario Bros. 3, and Super Mario World. Which I would say, if you want to play a Mario game, those would be the ones I would recommend.
Pretty much. I think the only one other game that wasn't within your concept that I was introduced to and shown off with was the additional game that they gave with Super Mario 3D World on the Switch, the addition of Bowser's Fury, which is an interesting concept and would be interesting to see what they do with a Mario game with that idea.
Yeah. So we're happy with keeping those in S. Sorry, you cut out there for a
Yep,
second.
fine keeping those in S.
Okay. So in A, we have Paper Mario, Super Mario Galaxy, Super Mario 3D World, Paper Mario Thousand Year Door, Mario and Luigi Superstar Saga, and Mario and Luigi Bowser's Inside Story.
Yes.
We're good with those?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. On the B tier, we have Super Mario Maker, Luigi's Mansion Dark Moon, New Super Mario Bros. Wii, Super Mario RPG Legend of the Seven Stars, Galaxy 2, Luigi's Mansion, and Sunshine.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Mm-hmm.
So on C tier, we have Mario and Luigi Paper Jam, Super Mario, New Super Mario Bros. Wii, New Super Mario Bros., Super Mario 3D Land, Yoshi's New Island, Super Mario Land, All Stars, Super Mario Bros., Yoshi's Island, Super Mario Land 2. Oh crap! I can't read that on the box. I have to pull up the thing here to see which one that is. Super Paper Mario and what's the other one? Oh, the Mario and Luigi Dream one. I can't remember what the name is. Dream Team.
Yes.
So we're happy with those on C?
Yeah, happy with those.
Okay. On D, we have Super Mario Bros. 2, New Super Mario Bros. 2, Paper Mario Color Splash, and Mario and Luigi Partners in in Time.
Yeah, yeah.
You're good with that? And in F, we have just the sticker one.
Yep, just that one. If there's anything that's to be said with any Mario game, do not make it like this one, please.
Yeah. And I mean, okay. You know what? Just for a little bit of fun, I'm going to name the 4 games we have in S. If somebody said that they wanted to play one Mario game, what would you recommend? So you have Odyssey, 64, 3, or World.
Out of the 3, sadly enough, I think it's no contest to just go with Odyssey. It would be the easiest to sort of get your hands on to play, but it fits enough with all the interesting concepts and as well as the idea to kind of mess around with to really get someone interested within the Mario game.
Okay. I mean, I would never say that Odyssey is a bad place to start, but if I were going to recommend it to someone, I would probably say World, just because that's like my favorite Mario game, probably.
Okay.
Just because, like, I never played it a ton as a kid. I played a lot of 3, but I can recognize World as a better version of 3.
Hmm. Okay.
So that would be my recommendation, but like Odyssey would be the second choice. Because, like you said, like I couldn't recommend 64 to someone now because I feel like if you've never played it before, it's going to be difficult to pick up and play. But
Yeah,
yeah,
it's one of the ones that it doesn't give you it gives you too much freedom at the start to really get an idea of how to go about things from there, whereas Odyssey starts you out and gives you a place to sort of go, but then lets you off the leash at from there.
yeah, I feel like they really did a good job with Odyssey of slowly kind of giving you a bit more as the game goes on. Like they don't give you the entire world right away.
Yeah, yeah.
Alrighty, so that was our ranking of the Super Mario franchise stuff. That was pretty good. So, you have anything else to add, Dave?
I think the only one other thing that I brought up was if you haven't played through it, it'd be interesting to see the concept that they did with Bowser's Fury and see what they could do with a full Mario game with that idea. Putting you in an entire world space area, opening it up bit by bit, but having the same collection idea as Odyssey, going around collecting specific things and seeing the things from there with this game's concept of there's a giant monster halfway through that tries to beat the snot out of you, whether by stomping you, breathing fire on you, or getting into a giant death match with you.
Yeah, I never played Bowser's Fury because that was one of those things where like they were like, "Oh yeah, we're bringing 3D World to the Switch," and I'm like, Isn't that like a Wii U game you're just porting over and you're going to expect me to pay $80 for? Fuck you.
But then they threw Bowser's Fury in, which was a additional game concept that they threw into it.
Yeah, it was like an added little thing, which, I mean, that's nice of them, but I've always had a hard time with the Switch with so many of the games being Wii U ports and charging full price.
Yeah, in those sorts of cases. At the very most with me, I can't remember too many of the specifics, but my nephews were intrigued about it. And being the uncle I was, showing off a couple of my video games to them, it's like, it wouldn't hurt to give it a try and play through the game. And I think I supposedly got it on sale. I can't remember exactly the way that I got it, but downloaded it and then started playing through Bowser's Fury. And it's like, oh, this is an interesting concept.
So, Bowser's Fury, is it terribly long? Because I was under the impression that it was quite short.
With that, it is fairly short.
Yeah, okay.
If you worked at it and got all the particular stuff together, again, you'd most likely be able to beat it within a couple of hours, same
Okay.
as probably Luigi's Mansion.
Okay. Okay. Alrighty. Well, I think that's going to be it for this time. I've been Paul.
And I've been Dave.